Hey everybody, I'm Jack Reedy with Future Pastimes, and I'm a designer on the expansions for the classic Dune board game from Gale Force 9. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the power alliance that I call the War Machine Alliance, and that is the one between CHOAM and the Tleilaxu. And the reason I call this the War Machine Alliance is because these are two factions that can throw a lot of forces into battles, and they don't have any revival limits, which means that they can get those forces out. And in this alliance, they're getting their forces out at half price. So imagine that they've each thrown 10 forces into battles, and they've lost all of those forces. They can get all 10 of those forces out at the next revival for 10 spice. So there's no reason not to jump into a lot of battles. They also have no restrictions really on getting the leaders out. It's one leader at a time for CHOAM. Tleilaxu has no limitations at all, but the Tleilaxu can revive CHOAM's leaders for free. And CHOAM, of course, in advance, they've got their auditor that can always be revived. So even if the Tleilaxu are not in the game. But that's the main strength of this alliance, is that they've got that revival freedom and discount. There are other reasons why this War Machine Alliance is a pretty good alliance between that. You have two economy factions teamed up. And anytime you team up two economy factions, there's a lot that they can do. Having spice is really one of the most central elements to having a good alliance and to winning the game. The spice allows you to ship down to the planet, allows you to buy your treachery cards, and then it's integral to revival as well. And the more reviving that goes on, the more the Tleilaxu are earning. CHOAM's economy is it's a passive income, so they're just going to be collecting that spice in the CHOAM charity phase every turn. How much they get may fluctuate a little bit. If you have the Bene Gesserit in the game, they're always going to be siphoning off 2 spice from CHOAM's income every turn. And anytime another faction is actually on CHOAM charity, they will be siphoning spice from CHOAM. But really, if you're CHOAM, other factions being on charity is really not that big of a deal, because you're still getting your income. If you're a smart CHOAM player, you haven't spent all of your spice every turn, so you always have a little bit left over. You're maybe collecting spice, or you're getting a spice income for occupying certain strongholds if you're playing advanced. So Arakeen and Carthag give you 2 spice each. 2x each gives you a spice. So there are other ways you can collect spice that the non-economy factions must rely on in order to get them. And then killing leaders in battles is another thing. So the access to all of that spice that the CHOAM and the Tleilaxu will have, especially the further into the game you get. In the early first couple of turns, the Tleilaxu are not going to have much of an income, but later on, they will be earning a lot of spice in the game. And that's going to give both of these factions a chance to acquire some decent treachery cards. And with CHOAM, all the treachery cards are pretty decent treachery cards, because of course they have their worthless card special abilities, which they can use, and they can always just sell them as well. And in the alliance, CHOAM has the ability to trade a treachery card with their ally, so that lets Tleilaxu unload the cards that they don't want or need, that CHOAM can take better advantage of. CHOAM, of course, also has the 5-card hand limit rather than the 4 cards. So the 9 cards between them, they'll be able to buy those cards once their alliance gets going. Then they can get into battles. They can send a lot of forces down and outdial. So even if they don't have the right weapon and defense combination, just the sheer numbers often wins a lot of those battles. So you've got all that going on. And on top of it, you've got the face dancers from the Tleilaxu. So even if they lose a battle, in certain cases, they're going to end up in those strongholds anyway. So if they can wisely pick their opponents and battle them out, increasing the likelihood of having a face dancer, called, then that increases the chances of this alliance winning. So it's got a lot going for it. It's got some great sneakiness with the Tleilaxu. In advance, of course, they can get the Golas in there. So if you are killing off strong leaders for the other factions, the Tleilaxu can then take those leaders, which is one of the really neat and awful things that the Tleilaxu can do ahead of game, where the Tleilaxu, they killed off their 3 weakest leaders, and then later on in the game, they had Captain Aramsham, who's a strength 5, they had Stilgar, who's a strength 7, and they had Feyd-Rautha, who's a strength 6. These were their leaders. That with Zol, who's an X, so he's going to be as strong as whoever he's facing. And yeah, if they get into a situation where maybe they've picked up a really good defense like the Shield Snooper, or a particularly good weapon, yeah, the Tleilaxu should be feared. And CHOAM, they help make that happen. So that's the real strength to this. And I really, for me, I love it because the CHOAM, they've got no limit to their revival for their forces. If they have 15 forces in the tanks and they have 15 spies, they can revive them. What's interesting, though, with the Tleilaxu is that they can give them half price on that. So CHOAM already pays half price for their revival. The Tleilaxu can cut that in half again. So if they're getting 6 forces out of the tanks, normally that costs CHOAM 6. But with the Tleilaxu as their ally, they only have to pay 3 spice for that. Now, that spice goes to the Tleilaxu, and maybe CHOAM sometimes wants to pay more, but if the Tleilaxu are doing all right spice-wise because of everybody else, then CHOAM can really take advantage of that great discount. They can revive a lot of their forces for very cheap, being allied to the Tleilaxu. So that's, for me, that is the real heart of this alliance, is your ability to just throw a lot of forces recklessly into battle and sacrifice them. And you don't have to worry about CHOAM using the trip to Gamant if you only have 1 force holding down the stronghold there after the battle. They're not going to send themselves to Gamant. That's something they're saving for somebody else. So the Tleilaxu don't have to worry about that very much either. It's a really strong alliance. So I recommend, if you've got CHOAM and Tleilaxu in the game, really consider teaming up, because the other factions won't really know what hit them once you guys get going. That's it for this video. If you've got some stories about CHOAM and Tleilaxu teaming up, I definitely want to hear about that. And let me know your other thoughts about why you would want to see these 2 factions in an alliance, or why you definitely don't want to see them in an alliance. And put those in the comments. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again soon.